Joining us now is Trent Mell, the CEO of First Cobalt, a familiar face to Capital Ideas viewers and to small cap viewers as well, Small Cap Power. Because we talked about, I'd have to look, but 18 months, 2 years ago, right?
That's right.
So just for those that don't know, First Cobalt, and you'll tell us more obviously, it's an electric vehicle play. Cobalt, obviously, you've got the Iron Creek project in Idaho. But as you were saying off air, you're more of a chemicals company now, and things have changed. So give us an update on what's happening with First Cobalt.
Sure. So we started this company back in 2017. Us and like dozens of cobalt plays, and there was a good run, a lot of interest. Probably got ourselves into a bit of an overbought situation across the complex, and then we went oversold. And most of the people that I would have seen alongside me in 2017 have since moved on to other things. We've got some staying power because we've got 3 good assets, all of them in North America. But you're right, we've now gone further downstream. I like to say that while we still have our mineral assets in Idaho and Ontario, we're a chemicals company this year because we've got a refinery that's built and it's permitted, and equally important, we've got a strategic partnership with Glencore now to provide us with some of their feed. So they mine in the DRC, and they take their cobalt, they produce a copper cathode, and their cobalt becomes a hydroxide feed for the Chinese refineries. And so jointly we've decided to take some of that feed and bring it to our refinery in Canada and become the first and only producer of chemical grade cobalt for electric vehicles on the continent.
And you're going to be starting that quite soon, correct?
Yeah, we're about 3 months away, less than 3 months away from our feasibility study. So end of Q1, feasibility on the quick restart with the current configuration, and then there's a second feasibility study on a sort of 4 or 5x expansion, running at 55 tons a day. And if we get there, then you're about 5% of the global market. So you're a meaningful player, and again, the only North American player. So end of March, feasibility, and then we'll conclude the commercial contract and the financing terms, and the hope and expectation is we can see first production at the end of this year, end of 2020.
So again, going back to our last conversation, again, a few years ago, there was so much talk about electric vehicles, so much talk about cobalt, everything, the future was rosy. But every company, every CEO knows that they have to pivot at some point. So what was that realization for you, that things aren't playing out as we thought, so we have to pivot into this different strategy?
Yeah, and so the conviction, like a lot of these things, the conviction hasn't changed, but timing it is tough, right? And I think the market, the whole market, myself included, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. And the big surprise factor for the cobalt market, we often get hidden in the shadow of lithium, which is has more players and perhaps a more mature industry, is the DRC artisanal mining piece picked up a lot faster than we thought. So when cobalt went from $15 a pound up to a high of 43, all of these, call it marginal operations, at $30 became quite interesting. And that triggered a supply overhang that we're still chewing our way through. And so for us, it was obvious that our mineral exploration, particularly the strategy in Idaho, where we got a fabulous asset, it was a little too early. We got to wait for the market to catch up, and we're at 50% of cobalt today is going into battery, so we're getting there. That revolution is happening. But until that's there, all that glut of production needs to go somewhere. We've got the refinery to make that into a chemical form. And so it was a natural evolution, a natural pivot, and we've got an asset that nobody else in the junior space has, so why not take advantage of that, get the cash flow.
How busy is that refinery going to be throughout 2020, do you think?
So our first production commissioning, we're trying to get there for November of 2020, using the current footprint, using the current permits. And so at 12 tons a day, you're producing about 1,000 tons of cobalt per year. The real prize for me is once we've done that, I view that candidly as first cash flow, a product that we can test with auto companies and battery makers, but it's like a giant pilot plant. And so once we get comfortable with that, do that expansion, we figure about 12 months to go from 12 to 55. Once we're satisfied that everything is operating the way it should, at 55 tons, then you're a meaningful player in the space, and you're a meaningful contributor to Northern Ontario in terms of its place in the automotive supply chain.
Right, and just lastly, Trent, for viewers who maybe were invested in various cobalt companies, they got kind of burned, it didn't work for them, how do you convince them that it's okay to go back into the water and there's a viable story here?
Yeah, I think the difference with us is we got cash flow around the corner. And my objective is to get ourselves to production with as little equity dilution as possible. I'm a shareholder. My first year's salary was all in shares. I've been buying. I bought up, I bought down. My cost base is double the current share price, so very, very motivated, and I'm still buying. I'm a big believer. And when you look across the space at how do you get exposure to cobalt, Beyond First Cobalt, there are very precious few options out there, and we are the only one that's got very, very near-term cash flow at a very small capex at that. The building is built, it's permitted, the feed is there, we got the partner is the biggest cobalt miner in the world, so it's a great value prop.
And what percentage of the company do you own, roughly?
Myself, probably only 1%.
Okay.
Not being a Ross Beatty, but it's meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And that's why I work. It's not for the salary, it's to create something meaningful, and I've got a lot of close friends, family, and shareholders that are a part of this. So I'm committed to make this work and make it a success.
Skin of the game, we'll be watching.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Trent. Trent Bell, CEO of First Cobalt.